You're listening to Change Your POV Podcast, episode 32.
There's all of this bullshit where it's like, oh, try your best and you're going to do this and best foot forward and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, thanks. I got over that in grade school. I'm a Marine, for Christ's sake. You think that I'm not going to put my best foot forward? Oh, I decided to half-ass this training evolution so that my whole squad could die. What are you, out of your mind? No. So when you come out into the regular world where civilian pace is 1/2 tempo your pace, it's your obligation as a veteran to seize every opportunity you can. It is your duty.
Welcome to Change Your POV Podcast, helping you navigate transitions in your life, like entering and exiting college or the military, changing jobs or careers, and providing you with the coaching and mentorship needed to help you advance in your personal or professional life. Sometimes all you need is to change your point of view. Now, here's your host, Eddie Lazary.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Change Your POV Podcast. I'm your host, Eddie Lazary, and today I am so excited to have with us none other than Michael Penney. Some of you may recognize Mike. If not, you will by the end of this episode. Mike served 8 years in the Marine Corps infantry, deployed 3 times to combat in Iraq and Afghanistan. He did 2 tours in Ramadi, Iraq, and 1 in Kajaki, Sangin, Afghanistan. After leaving the Corps in 2012, Michael set out as an entrepreneur. Now he is one of the hosts of Cigars and Sea Stories. One of the other ones you may know is Bennett, my co-host on my Friday episodes, and a chief contributor to bloodstripes.com. When he's not toiling away in the office, Mike enjoys spending time shooting, hunting, and hanging out in nature. We'll get to this awesome interview with Mike in a minute, but first, a word from today's sponsor. Today's podcast is brought to you by audible.com. Get a free audiobook download and a free 30-day trial at changeyourpov.com/freebook. Over 180,000 titles to choose from your phone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. If you like to listen to audiobooks like I do, you could check one out. I'm reading Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, which is also recommended by Mike later in this episode. Think and Grow Rich is the #1 inspirational and motivational classic for individuals who are interested in furthering their lives and reaching their goals by learning from important figures in history. The text read in this audiobook is the original 1937 edition written by Napoleon Hill and inspired by Andrew Carnegie. And while it has often been reproduced, no updated version has ever been able to compete with the original. It has been used as a roadmap to achievement by countless individuals. So again, head on over to changeyourpov.com/freebook for your free 30-day trial and your free audio download. Now, let's get back right into this episode already in progress. All right, welcome everyone for an episode of Change Your POV Podcast. I'm your host, Eddie Lazary, and today, special guest, we have none other than Mr. Michael Penney. Mike is the founder of Cigars and Sea Stories. He is also a chief contributor of bloodstripes.com. And if you haven't heard Cigars and Sea Stories, it's a podcast of a pack of Marines that sit around and tell stories, interview guests, provide value to the world. It's like being a fly on the wall and just sitting around listening to a bunch of Marines just kind of around the fire pit. It's very funny, and if you're not a Marine, you may not get some of the lingo but it's still funny. I love it. I listen to every episode, and sometimes I think you guys are just off your rocker, crazy nuts. Michael is a rifle pistol and shotgun instructor for the NRA. He was a rifle platoon shotgun muzzleloader instructor, a chief range safety officer, a designated marksman, an infantryman in the United States Marine Corps, foreign weapons instructor. You seen that segment in NFL? Come on, man. You've seen that, right? It's like, come on, man. Like, is there anything you don't do or haven't done? I mean, I can't, you know what I mean? It just, the list goes on and on and on.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, you just the man. It just Da man. So it was several tours to Iraq and Afghanistan and Iraq, right? You did both?
Correct. Yep. Saw combat in
Yeah,
both.
man. All right. So um let's before we get too crazy down the road of this interview, why don't you just kind of fill in the gaps a little bit and let the listeners know a little bit more about you?
Sure. Right on. Yeah. And thank you so much for having me on the show. This is awesome and
No
frankly an
problem.
honor, to be honest with you. Yeah, I joined the Corps in 2004. I served 8 years in total. 2 tours to Ramadi, Iraq with 3-7 Weapons Company. Went to Quantico where I trained lieutenants how to shoot as a combat marksmanship coach, trainer, and then I trained those guys how to do their job, which is pretty cool. Formal school instructor, foreign weapons, small arms weapons, designated marksman, did some other precision weapon type stuff, some concealed carry. Yeah, did the NRA thing, volunteered for a third combat tour, went overseas in 2011 with the police advisor team with 1-5. Never saw my own unit the entire time I was there. Our small team was sent up to basically supplement an artillery unit up near the Kajaki Dam. We worked with the Afghan uniformed police up there. It was actually a very cool experience. I really enjoyed it, and it was pretty unique in comparison to what a lot of other Marines got to experience. So, yep.
Yeah, that's cool, man. It's exciting to hear you got to work with some artillerymen because I, of course, am a red leg. So,
Nice.
what the hell were the artillery guys doing? Were they guns? Were they observers? Like, who were they?
I'm glad that you asked that because nobody does. So there were 2 different artillery units that switched through. So basically, we were there for 2 months with the guys who had already been there for 5. They switched out, and then we got a new batch, Brimstone, who, they're new to the EAO. So I don't know if you've ever had a counterpart that you're, kind of adjacent unit with rip in the middle of a deployment, but it sucks, man. It's like, oh, you're going home, and then you've got to help out the other unit. So we had Brimstone. They did a variety of missions. They shot all the way up to Excal and supported guys way down in the northern AO of Sangin. They could crank the elevation all the way down and go almost direct fire to the north. We called them routinely, where we would try to get them as high angle as we could so that they would rifle over top and just, you've seen, or maybe you haven't, Afghan buildings are just crazy structures.
Like mud huts, like to the max, right?
Yeah, but almost like castle wall thickness. 20, 24-inch thickness.
Wow.
Nuts. Oh yeah, artillery pieces really don't do that much to Afghan walls. It's pretty shocking. And a 50 cal doesn't do anything. What's up?
What are you lobbing there? 1.5? You got 155 towed or what?
Yeah, anytime we call for, yes, it was 155. They were 777 howitzers. So,
damn.
Yep, they were cool.
Damn, got to hand it to the boys that were towing those bad boys around. We had self-propelled 155 howitzers. So, yeah, I've been down on the gun line before when they dig those spades in the back and they just fire like red bag and they just start lobbing rounds like no tomorrow. But yeah, unfortunately, I didn't get to do a whole lot of artillery stuff when I was in Iraq. I was in Baghdad from 04 to 05, and that was back in the day where we thought about collateral damage and we couldn't shoot unless we were being shot at, and the ROEs were just crazy. So we didn't get an opportunity to fire, but only a few times. But hey, I think Afghanistan is a little bit different. You kind of sounds like you got to shoot some stuff over there.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy in the sense that I came into the Marine Corps in 0341, so I was a mortarman.
Okay.
And, I wave topped on the FO side. I could call for fire. Don't ask me to do anything fire direction center. You'd need to spin me up, pun very much so intended, on the fire direction center in order to understand what the heck is going on. I was a gun monkey primarily. And then when I was overseas, I was a driver in CAT teams, and I was also a high back driver, basically the ambulance going in and out of zone in Ramadi. So I never fired an 81 in Ramadi. Fast forward all the way 2011, we call for 81s I don't know, every other night from an elevated position that we had out kind of in advance. What we would do is we would sit up on high with a G-boss and we'd see these guys at distance. And, you know, if anybody came close or anything like that, we'd bracket way off into the backdrop and shoot 81 a loom. You know, we'd hit,
Nice.
it'd be IR at first, obviously, and then you're looking through, because the G-boss, Jesus, it just turns everything into daylight.
Yeah.
You know, and they don't know what the hell's going on. But, oh, God, it's so much fun, though, if you can hit the right loom, right? Meaning if you put the right delay on and everything's working correctly. Okay,
Yep.
so the PFC looking on a red lens flashlight pulls out a fuse wrench, make sure that it gets the actual setting correctly. If that happens, the flexion, elevation, everything else is all set up accurately. It's like the sun is over top of these dudes in the middle of the night. And when that happens and you're out there, you're just like, oh shit.
Did you get to fight? Did you get to fire any coordinated loom?
Yes. Yep.
Oh, See,
yeah.
I've only done that at NTC, live fire, and then of course in the training simulators we've done it all the time. But yeah, coordinated illumination is it's a skill set, man. It takes a lot of practice.
Oh yeah.
You got to get those illumination rounds to maximum height and burn out as soon as they hit the ground. Figure out the drift direction, and then start lighting up. Your couple fire and your HE underneath the loom. So
yeah,
pretty intense stuff.
Yeah,
that's awesome, man.
That's solid, no joke. And I won't say that we were launching HE all the time, don't get me wrong, but we were running coordinated loom missions probably 3 times a week when we were in Kajaki, depending upon what was going out in the battle space. Because we had a joint, it was like Marines on one side and Afghan on the other, which I'm a police advisor, so I'm supposed to be the marriage counselor in between the two, right?
Right, yeah.
Which it was great, though, because case in point, we got in a firefight. I was rocking on a Sasser with my buddy. But the real, awesome takeaway from this whole thing is the squad leader who we were working with, who's an artillery... So he was an artilleryman and a section leader, and had gotten very limited squad leader training. Much to his credit, he's out there hooking and jabbing as a patrol leader. So we've been working, and during the middle of this firefight, he had gone over to the Afghan side and is coordinating fires with 2 other Marines. So now you've got Afghan, PKM, RPD, RPK, us 240, maybe a 50 rocking, Sasser rocking, another 240. I mean, M4, M16, whatever. But seeing this squad leader go in between, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's just assignment and control. That's it. People, for some reason, misinterpret that. And you can just point and say, shoot, and they'll do it. And it was just so awesome. It was like, yes, mission accomplished. Yes. It was cool. And then he was impressed. Right. He was like, dude, I didn't realize that the Afghans could hook and jab like this, dude. I was impressed. Because a PKM medium machine gun, a 7.62 by 5.4 rimmed, a non-disintegrating cloth belt, that an Afghan literally sat there and put each round into. Wow. And now he's slaying hate and discontent downrange. It's just so awesome. Ugh. Yeah.
Oh, that's sweet, man. That's cool.
Yep.
So, so you get back. Now, how long after you redeployed did you get out of the Corps?
Let's see. I got back from combat. Last time I led Marines was October 2011. Quick little story, by the way.
Sure.
We're in Patrol Base Gumbati, which, by the way, when I die and go to hell, that's where they're going to send me. But it's dude, I'm telling you, man, this is 2 conjoined compounds. And the week before we took over, there were livestock living where I was going to be sleeping. Okay. It was
nice.
Oh yeah, it was straight manger. All right. So yeah, it's pretty awesome. But my buddy Chad leans over and he's like, "Hey Mike, are we in a manger?" And I'm like, dude, I'm going to kill you right now. This is already terrible. So my team, much to their credit, held up. We had a 50-50 rotation. Plus, we were doing patrols. I mean, we were working with the Afghan. It was just crazy stressful for the last 2 months. And they pick us up on a Tuesday. So there was all this coordination, blah, blah, blah. There's huge misdirect. And I'm like, dude, we're in somebody else's battle roster. And unless we get back over to this one fob, they're going to leave us. You know, like I wasn't necessarily worried that Marines in general were going to leave Marines. I'm just saying that we're on somebody else's battalion roster and they ain't
Right.
leaving for another 3 months. So we get in touch with these guys and they're like, "Oh my God, your stick leaves in 9 hours."
Oh, no.
And I'm like, "What?" And I'm talking about, dude, we did not rip. Like this patrol base was going to be demilled and we were walking away. So there was nothing to rip, okay? They put us on a Cougar, get us into the fob, inspect our gear. We're on a stick at 01 on an Osprey, out of there to Kandahar. We're there for 12 hours, which, by the way, Kandahar has a really kick-ass boardwalk. And at TGI Fridays, fucking burger owned me. Excuse me, sorry, I don't know if I can swear in here. But
Yeah, go for
the
it.
burger in there owned me, man. I'm telling you. And then like the incoming siren goes off. Everybody runs out of this place. I look over at this dude. He's got a lightning bolt, right, on this arrowhead patch.
Oh, yeah.
And
okay.
I'm like, "What do you do in the Army?" And he's like, "We're special forces." And I'm like, "Oh, that's why you guys aren't running out the door, huh?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Yeah, we just got done in Kajaki and Sangin. What are you doing?" And they're like, "Smoking." And we're like, "Cool." So everybody is in like in a containment area or some sort of bunker, and we're the only 4 people smoking cigarettes just out in the middle of nowhere. So that was
Nice.
fun. So all right. So now this is Wednesday, right? Thursday we're on a bird up to Kyrgyzstan. We're there for 12 hours. Quarantine is crazy. We're flying home from Kyrgyzstan. Long story short, I see my wife, or my girlfriend at the time, at 03 a.m. the following Tuesday.
Wow.
I mean,
That was pretty quick, man.
dude, sloshing around Walmart at like 3 in the morning with my eyes sunk into the back of my head for like a week.
Nice.
You know? Because
Yeah.
there's just no decompression.
Yeah, I mean, everywhere you go, you turn around, you're looking for your weapon, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I've been there.
Got out of the Marine Corps 6 months later.
Wow.
First.
All right, so
Mhm.
so let's talk about that transition out of the Marine Corps.
Sure.
So, how much preparation did you have up to the point where you actually separated? So you were probably thinking about this long in advance. You probably did some type of backwards planning. You had probably a schedule. I'm sure you had some people that you were going to meet and talk to. Like all of that happened, right?
And then it all went entirely out the window. Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Exactly. I got to say, I was pretty well prepared. Number one reason why I got out of the Marine Corps, tattoo policy.
Really?
Tattoo policy. I wanted to go be a gunner. And gunner is a chief warrant officer in the Marine Corps infantry. They told me you'll never be a chief warrant officer with your tattoos because I had tattoos that show below the elbow.
Wow.
To which I replied, "There's not a single human being I killed who ever complained about my lack of professionalism."
Right.
So
right.
that's complete BS. All right, so I was looking around at the other branches, almost pulled the trigger on a blue to green, was going to go like Army SF or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't do it. Needed to get out. The old lady was like, "Look, I'm done." Okay. Kind of always sort of knew that I wanted to go be an entrepreneur, but that's a huge pill to swallow. When I was overseas, a guy named Preston, love this man, is my law enforcement professional and an Air Force veteran. And he handed me the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, which is kind of like a self-help book, but he looked at me that day and was like, "I read this in my 20s and it didn't take until I read it again in my 40s, and I really regret that." So I read it, and I went through it cover to cover, and when I saw a little glimmer inside of it, kind of like I woke up just, I don't know, on the 50-yard line in the middle of the football field, and I started scrolling away on a piece of graph paper, invented a product, snail mailed it home, right? This is just graph paper.
Yeah.
Had a patent attorney who was basically set aside with a provisional patent by the time I got home and said, "I'll sign the paperwork when I get home. I'm not going to do it when I'm overseas because I might have died." So I got home. A week after I got home, I signed the paperwork on the provisional patent, and then I started cold calling different places in order to create a prototype for what would be my invention. And when I went into SEPs and TAPs in Mainside and Camp Pendleton, I told everybody I'm going to be an entrepreneur, and this is what I'm going to do. And they were all like, "You're out of your fucking mind." Until I got to, Christ, I don't even remember the gentleman's name, but I basically was saying, "Hey, I want to take a personality test. I want to see if what I believe is inside of my heart is actually coming out on paper." And so I took a personality test, and I took a lot of studious notes. And I said, "Hey, I'm supposed to be an entrepreneur," and I was totally prepared. And then I moved from there to Boston and started going to college, and everything fell apart entirely.
Mm.
I was away from the tribe at that point.
So do you attribute that falling apart to being away from the core, or is it moving to Boston, or was it the school, or what was it?
So I was going to school for entrepreneurship. It wasn't a school. UMass Boston is a great school. It's the only state school, in the city of Boston. It's out on Dorchester, out on this peninsula. And I actually really enjoyed it there. I enjoyed the professors there. I enjoyed the leadership and what have you. The city, not really for me. The northerly, area. And I'm an NRA instructor living in Boston. I mean, like, come on, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You need to be blessed by the Pope and, go down on somebody in order to get a concealed carry permit there, which is your God-given right as an American. So, so I said, okay, something's got to change here. Now, like I said, I was studying entrepreneurship. I also went to a thing called Entrepreneurship Boot Camp for Veterans, which is ran under the Institute of Veteran Military and Families out of Syracuse. They have multiple locations, but their headquarters is out of Syracuse. So a number of these different things kind of like stacked up, all right? Now, on top of it, you remember watching the marathon bombing when it took place?
Yeah.
You remember the firefight that ensued with everybody afterwards and how the press conference was right in front of a Best Buy?
Right.
I worked at that Best Buy.
Oh.
So the firefight that took place was in the neighborhood behind it. I was about a mile as the crow flies from that location. And somebody putting pressure cookers in an area that is like a gun-free zone, and you're the only guy with guns, and I've seen what pressure cookers do to people. Like, I've treated them. That really helped my decision, and I also got in a very minor, albeit relative, car accident where I was driving my 4Runner, and I was coming up one side, and a semi-truck was in the far left lane, and he had swung way out and come all the way back across, and he spun me through the middle of an intersection. So let me tell you, for those two revolutions through the middle of an intersection, I was not in Boston. Right. You know what I mean? I was just like, woo. And I was a lead truck driver in Ramadi. Boston is a haphazard place. I mean, there were just so many different things that just kind of steered me out of there.
Yeah, it just wasn't conducive to a transition out of the experiences that you've had. Yeah.
And yet necessary. Because the things that I learned, the connections I made, let alone we were closer to my wife's family during that time, which was very trying in her personal life. We were there for the right reasons at the right time, and then when we moved down to Raleigh, it was for the right reasons at the right time.
Right.
So,
right.
And
that's where you're at now, is Raleigh?
Correct. And we've been here for a year.
Nice.
So, loving it. Calling all veterans, move to Raleigh. It is awesome.
So talk to me about Cigars and Sea Stories. You are the founder, but you are one of 4 co-hosts of the show. Talk to us about kind of how that came to be. What is that all about, and what can people get out of listening to that podcast?
So the podcast kind of came out of my first business, kind of dwindling, kind of fading into the background. I was approached by somebody else, Mark Rett, started working on bloodstripes.com, which is an affiliate of ours. Bloodstripes.com is a professional development portal specifically for Marines. So we always say it's for successful Marines, those who truly care about their career. So we started working on that, or I did, and right around that time, Bennett and I had linked up at the national conference in Atlanta, National Conference for Entrepreneurship Boot Camp for Veterans. And Bennett Tanton and I were out, Jesus, must have been like 1, 2 in the morning. We were out in the Olympic Park, and he was like, bro, we should make a podcast. You know, it would be a Marine thing. He's Marine Recon circa 1990s. And I'm like, yeah, dude, we're puffing away on stogies. And I said, we should call it Cigars and Sea Stories. And Like, yeah, that's cool. What would it be? We're like, you know what? Let's keep it simple, because one of the problems that I struggled with in Boston, not so much here because I found other veterans, is, I mean, we've got a different sense of humor. It comes out of our culture. We've got a different way of chatting with each other and stuff like that. And so that's really what it stemmed from. Is it was like, dude, let's just recreate those smoke pit moments that we had out behind the hooch when we were on deployment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it has started as and gone no further than, let's slap a tape recorder down in a room full of veterans and just see what type of chaos ensues.
Right. Right.
Very rewarding experience.
Yes.
So yeah, and it's been great too, because we travel a lot. We on our own dime get in the car and travel to different veteran-led businesses, and we record with them in their location.
Oh, wow.
So, which we've gone to Nashville to cover Operation Give Back. They were doing a run from Chattanooga for the families of the fallen there. Operation Give Back helps all of the families of the fallen, not just Gold Star.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we went on a big long road trip through, Ohio. We linked up with Adam Steele and his wife. They're great people. Over to Joe Trainer's spot, the Oasis, with one pet, one vet. We went out to Denver. My brother and his fiance, Nate and Sarah, they live out there, and all of our friends out in the Denver way. We visited Marty Scoveland Jr. in Colorado Springs. My buddy Brian Shangle, who is a civilian, he's a welder and a great dude, and he was our waypoint in Arkansas on the way to Alabama to see Mark Garrett, and then back up to North Carolina. So it's fun name dropping across the U.S., by the way. Those are all shameless plugs and shout outs for all of those awesome people who allowed us to stay for free. Thank you for not showing us the door.
So in all of your experiences meeting all these other veteran entrepreneurs, veterans of several different branches, like what's some common threads with them that you've noticed or you picked up?
Wow, that's a really good question. Across all 5 branches?
Yeah, just the folks that you've had a chance to meet across the country. Like what comes out, what resonates as like a common denominator amongst all of these folks?
Yeah. For me, it's core values, and it's very easy to see. From the guy who did a 2-year stint in whatever branch to the hard-charging, bearded, sunglasses dude downrange right now stabbing somebody with a bayo, each one of them loves life, family, and country. I was talking to my wife about this earlier because she loves life, she loves family, and I asked her if she really loves something greater than herself to that extent, to which she would give her life. And much to her credit, it's the school children that she works with, because she's a school nurse. These people, these veterans, fellow veterans that I meet, to include myself, will die for somebody they've never met before, based upon a belief structure, a core sense of understanding that is our nation, and in that we are an American tribe, so to speak. That's the best, most honest and sincere way that I could describe a veteran, is that they truly, honestly, sincerely love their country, and it goes much deeper than just the nucleus that is their family.
Or how do you define success?
Damn, man, that's a great question.
I know, I got lots of them, so
right?
Yeah, be ready, yeah.
Well, it's funny because I was on this blab just last night, and there's this dude. I don't want to give away his name. He's got a lot of other personal things that are going on where it's like he's got umpteen kids and all of this other stuff. This lady was giving him a hard time about his measure of success. This dude's got a Lambo in the garage, and he's taking care of his whole family. Anyhow, I say that because it's very easy to wrap up success in a monetary factor. However, I am one of these people who subscribe to Einstein's theory of don't be a man of success, instead be a man of value. That's something that I walked by every day when I was a kid in my parents' house, and is still hanging in their house to this day. Being a man of value is success, in my opinion. The individual who is willing to step up and support others around in the sense of something greater than themselves. So Success to me is being able to provide the most amount of value possible at any given moment in time, and you can consider yourself a successful human being.
And how do you measure that?
It's quantifiable based upon the group that you are adding your value to. So it's almost a trick. It's almost a trick answer, really, right? You know what I mean?
You're a very good politician, but I like the answer.
Well, I don't know if it's so much politics as success is found within oneself. I truly believe that. And I'm not trying to be altruistic. I'm not a very religious guy. I'm very spiritual, though, in the sense of the answer has to lie within. You know, the next business that I build won't be better because it's a better business. It'll be better because I'm a better entrepreneur.
Right. Right.
So it's the discipline within you. The guns didn't get better. I became a better, more disciplined marksman. So what is success? I mean, what is success downrange? Kill them before they kill you. What is success on a rifle range? Hit black every time, center mass. And in order to achieve that, it's an interpersonal discipline. So if you're adding the most amount of value as you can possibly conceive at that moment in time, no matter how helpless, how vulnerable you may be in that situation, that would be a measure of success. And unfortunately, it lies with the individual. Yeah.
Yep, I like that answer. And as a fellow veteran entrepreneur, I also know that you just can't have success without failure. Would you agree?
I would, but I would also, I can't speak directly to Army doctrine and Marine Corps doctrine. The only time that we apply failure to anything is a weapon or a piece of gear. Anytime it's applied to a human being, you're either unqualified or qualified. You only get attempts. You don't get tries. So in all actuality, did you ever fail anything? Nope. Just learned how not to do it.
Right.
But I agree with you entirely within the mantra of the master has failed countless times, more times than the beginner could ever possibly conceive.
Yeah, and I even had somebody once tell me, and I can't remember who, but this is something I've kind of stuck with, and that is there's no such thing as success and failure. There's success in learning, right? And even though you're going to have setbacks and there's going to be things that you shouldn't have done or things that you could have done better, those are all learning points, and it's really up to you as the individual, as the entrepreneur, to make those mental notes, right? In the military, we call them after action reviews, lessons learned, right? And we make note of things that went well, things that didn't go so well, and how we can shift or pivot the next time so we don't make those same mistakes again.
Yeah, and I'd also like to caveat as well that just kind of going back to this blab last night, this lady said something which still sticks with me. The guy had said he's alive, and she was like, that's the true measure of success. And that galled me. I didn't say anything. You know what I mean? It wouldn't add value to the situation, so I just didn't say anything. But that galled me. Being alive is not success. That's survival. Flourishing is success.
Right.
Okay, like
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those also where people just think surviving a situation is enough. Here's the thing that happened to me, okay? There's 5 common stressors that a human being would never want to encounter. These are the 5 most common stressors which you as a human being out there listening to this podcast, I'm sure would not wish on your worst enemy. And that is loss of a loved one, divorce, separation from a loved one, and then you've got job loss, which makes perfect sense, and illness. Okay, and I say those last 2 separate because they're an individual thing to whatever extent. Now, here's why I say it like this, and allow me to repeat them real quick, okay? Loss of a loved one, divorce, separation from a loved one. You've got an illness, and then job loss, okay? When I was in Quantico, I had 17 KIA, right? I didn't necessarily know all of them. Let's just say that 5 of them were very close personal friends, okay? So that's enough, I'd think. My marriage was in shambles. It was gone, my first marriage. I was separated from my kids at that moment in time. I was suffering from a personal illness, and I had just lost my billet, which, if you're a veteran, you know is your job. At the same time, I was going through the 5 most common stressors that you wouldn't wish one on the worst enemy. I mean, this is the plague of your life. So to just say that I'm alive right now is not success. That means that I happen to survive something. So all that I'm saying is that you need to add incremental value into those moment of crises. And that's where you start to leverage those who are around you, but you also focus hard within your strengths and your own ability to add value. It's surprising what happens when you do.
When you were going through that trying moment or that trying period in your life, is that something you were able to reach deep down inside and just kind of grab a hold of, some Marine Corps values, things that you've learned in the Corps, and kind of work through it on your own? Did you need other people? Like, how did you get through that?
The easiest way that I can possibly put this is that those are the 5 most common things that somebody will go through. I was not alone. And at that moment in time, I sure as hell thought that I was. And so when I started to voice, hey, this is how I'm feeling, this is what's going on, people didn't pinball me around where to go. I very much so sought it out on my own. And I looked to go find those individuals who might be hurting along the same path as me. So that could be in a lot of different ways. One of the ways, case in point, shameless plug here for our fellow friend Bennett Tanton, warriorhall.org is one of those ways that I aim to heal myself through fellowship. So again, I'm not a religious guy. I sought fellowship. I'm not trying to be cryptic. I found other people who were hurting in a similar fashion as myself. And then in their moment of weakness, I remained strong. And in my moment of weakness, I called upon them. And I still do that. I'm stronger as a human being because of it. The more value-added relationships that you have in your life, the more value that you have the ability to add. Now, if you're an introvert and you only have like 5 people, 7 people, whatever, maybe only 4, but they're extremely high quality, extremely high value relationships, you're going to be more powerful because of that. And by power, I mean value in all capital. So your ability to support somebody else is that much higher. Your ability to be evil is that much higher as well. However, it counteracts itself. If you notice, I'm kind of a guy who I enjoy balance. This is kind of getting into a little bit of the TED Talk type of stuff.
Yeah, well, let's not go there yet.
Right.
So I a couple nights ago, I actually interviewed a Vietnam veteran, and I asked him the question, it's been 40 plus 50 years or whatever now since he's, been out of Vietnam and out of the military. And I asked him, I said, at what point, in your life did you finally realize that transition out of military life into civilian life was complete? You know what I mean? Like I'm more than 10 years out of the military, out of the Army now, but I still struggle with things, and I still feel like there's certain aspects that I'm still transitioning out of the military and trying to, have an equilibrium with the civilian sector. And he said something to me that was encouraging. He says, after 40, 50 years, whatever it is, he goes, he still feels like he's not transitioned completely out of the military. There's still, and I don't think that there ever will be a time as veterans, particularly combat veterans, that will ever just feel like we're completely transitioned, because we've gone through things and we've experienced things, and we've had those bonds of friendship and brotherhood that will live with us forever. And that's a good thing, but it can also be a challenge, right? Especially for those that are looking to try to be successful, civilians, in the civilian world. It can be challenging, because I hear a lot of veterans say, words like they just don't get it, or, a lot of people are put off by seeking help from like civilian folks and things like that. So what would you say to those that are transitioning? Maybe they're recently transitioning, or they've transitioned and they've been out for a while, but they still find it, or they still struggle with that whole concept of transition. What would you say to them?
I would say this. I personally am starting to develop a new mantra, because I'm one of these people who use the term transition as well. But I challenge you another thought: evolution. And I say it like that because If you expect me to transition from being a Marine back to the nasty filth of a civilian that I was, then you're dead wrong. I will never do it. I don't want to.
Right.
I evolved out of being a filthy, disgusting civilian to a United States Marine. And then from there, I evolved out of being a Marine on active duty into being a Marine veteran. Some of us are Marine combat veterans, and that is not to discredit the other. However, a new set of challenges occur. So there's another stage of evolution which must happen, accept that it did, accept that you've been trained to go and do the other things, and then springboard based upon that knowledge, wisdom, and experience.
Give me an example of a military-related attribute or trait that you've been able to apply in your endeavors or your entrepreneurship today. Like, what have you been able to carry forward with you and use on a daily basis?
Plenty of tools. I mean, the absolute number one thing, and I hate calling it just discipline because it's not. It's discipline and initiative bundled. Has been the biggest thing. And all that I mean by that is discipline is the anti of procrastination. Discipline allows you to commit to action and remain steadfast in your own devotion to what you're doing. But that initiative, having the audaciousness to have the initiative, that's what I hang on to. And that comes out of being an advisor and a sergeant in a police advisor team. I will tell you that much right now, on top of being a Marine. Just because you're alone with the Afghans and you're not in charge of them and they're not in charge of you, but there's 12 of you and 83 of them. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I would see that would present some unique challenges.
And it's the idle hands thing, right? A lot of veterans don't do well in an idle hands perspective. Like, I don't do well in a brick building tethered to a desk. I love to learn. I love to explore. I'm the guy who watches documentaries in the History Channel. I don't have cable. I would rather pursue learning all of the time and capture news through other forms. Yeah, call me a dork or a nerd or something like that, but that's what I needed when I was in the Corps, was that discipline and the initiative.
If you had a time machine, you had the ability to go back to any point in your life and have a conversation with your earlier, younger self, what point in time would that be, and what would you say?
I would be 16 years old. I would tell myself that I am in my own way and a giant dumbass. Don't marry the first one. Enjoy the career. It's going to suck incredibly bad, and you will love yourself for it in the long run. Yeah. Go easy.
Okay.
Go easy on the bottle, maybe. I wouldn't listen to the last bit.
Yeah, well, hindsight's 2020, right? So, yeah.
Right.
So let's get into TED Talk. So for listeners out there, Mike Penney, he submitted or applied to be a speaker at TEDx Raleigh, and there was over 250 applicants that applied. So talk to me a little bit about that journey.
Right on. Yeah. There are about 230 to 250 applicants, got whittled down to 13 speakers, and I'm not a professional speaker. I'm thinking about going into that realm. We'll see. Not keynote, but doing the seminar and the breakout, especially for 5-paragraph business plan. I kind of went into it with an advantage due to the background that I had in the Marine Corps. When we trained lieutenants, I mean, there's 300 of them in an auditorium, LCDs and Jumbotron and blah, blah, blah. So that definitely helped prepare for the outside. And then what I do now for a profession helped with the in front of the camera audition video to whatever extent.
So what's the theme of TEDx Raleigh this year?
So the theme is Wanderlust. The idea we're spreading is based on us. So for me, Wanderlust is setting the writing tablet back down onto the nightstand, knowing that it's a great idea, then dreaming about it all night long. The idea that I have we're spreading is add value to every situation you encounter. The call to action is not just add value. It's too simple in that. But leverage your strengths, be cognizant of your weaknesses, collaborate with like-hearted or close-hearted individuals, that is to say, similar core belief structure, develop the new mindset for where you would like to go in this positive thinking, value-adding mentality, and then
Mm-hmm.
commit to action.
Nice.
So, and of course, like in a good TED Talk, there's a story involved.
Yeah. So without getting into any specifics and spoiling it for anyone, you obviously you did your kind of your interview take, if you will, or your submission, and then you also have gone through several iterations of actually giving your speech to several folks at TEDx. So what's been the overall kind of reception of your message?
It's been solid. As far as the messaging is concerned, it's been solid. Some of the different content that I've been going over, I'm one of these guys where I go through it and I'm not robotic by any means, but I want to make sure that my content's locked down. And so I don't speed through the talk. It's very much so powerful or dramatic to whatever extent, but I need to inject my humor in some of those other different places.
Right.
So overall response has been great. It's just, oh God, you know how it is when you're called upon to command in whatever regard. I mean, even if you're an NCO, like this is how it was for me being a sergeant, right? If they tell me to go up on that stage and address the battalion and tell them that they are secured for Libo this weekend or something like that, Christ, I don't know. I'm just gonna go up there and do it.
Right.
That's exactly what I'm gonna do. So I went up on there and I did it. It wasn't militaristic. It's just, they're like, wow, dude, super powerful, really intimidating. And
For them or for
for
you?
them, for
Okay.
them. Yeah, for them.
Okay.
No, I'm not trying to sound arrogant. I'm not intimidated by this stuff. I don't mean to say that it's not a huge stage and that it's not supposed to be respected. It very much so is. But if I was intimidated by this stage, then I should not have applied to TED Talk.
Right.
You
Right.
you got to be ready to add value to that equation.
Yeah. Not only. Yeah.
Circumstances be damned.
Well, not only that, but I mean, kind of keeping in line with kind of the mantra of this podcast is change your POV. Anyone that's been through combat, has been shot at, been blown up, and, has had to make split decision, life or death, on the spot decisions. It really brings things into perspective when you're faced with other things that other people consider to be intimidating, right? And I experience this in the workplace where people are, very much so intimidated by certain things, and it's like, dude, and until you've been shot at or you shooting and hunting other people and you've survived IED explosions and you've seen, buddies die in your arms, it's like it really brings things into perspective of what really is intimidating, what really is a challenge, and what isn't, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Well, that and on top of it, I just got to say that the intimidation factor of going into an opportunity moment
Mm.
vice the intimidation factor. I mean, just think about it, right? People talk about this all the time. Oh, I could regret this on my deathbed or blah, blah, blah. One of the reasons why I started adding so much value into the world is because I wanted to hedge my bets. I'm investing in my own value to support everybody else so that when a huge opportunity comes my way, I can strike while the iron's hot.
Mm.
Or much to the opposite end of the spectrum, if a massive crisis occurs, I'm going to add value to somebody else's situation, but they're much more apt to have my back at that moment, right? So
Right.
so now we dissect what are the situations that you're looking to put yourself into.
Hmm.
I mean, there are a lot of people who are willing to put themselves into very precarious spots on the hope that something might not happen. There are too many what ifs involved in that statement. I'm
Hmm.
sorry. Okay, so like if I'm going to put myself in any situation, it's not going to be a situation of mediocrity, or being shoved around or something like that. It's going to be a situation of opportunity. And I'm always going to seek out situations which put me into a moment of opportunity. Why wouldn't I?
Right. Right.
So,
Even if it doesn't succeed the way you thought it would or hoped it would, there's still value in it because it's just like when I presented a workshop for a local university here. I was expecting to get, maybe a little bit of interest, some hems, some haws. Let's see, maybe. And I got a completely opposite, reception on it.
Mm-hmm.
They were very, very eager, very excited. They said, I pitched it. They said it came at the right time for that university, and they really want to, turn it into a workshop and potentially a class. So, it just, just like going for the TED Talks, it was something that I just went for, and you just never know. I mean, you can't get an answer one way or the other unless you ask, right?
Oh, absolutely. Well, then there's all of this bullshit where it's like, oh, try your best and you're going to do this and best foot forward and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, thanks. I got over that in grade school. I'm a Marine,
Hmm.
for Christ's sake. You think that I'm
Right.
not going to put my best foot forward? Oh, I decided to half-ass this training evolution so that my whole squad could die. What are you, out of your mind? No. No. So
Right.
when you come out into the regular world where civilian pace is one half tempo your pace, it's your obligation as a veteran to seize every opportunity you can. It is your duty. Let me tell you right now, if you're trying to figure out what the mission is, all right, because you're back and you've evolved and now you're in veteranhood. We're in the middle of a firefight. American society is all jacked up. Civilians are moving extraordinarily slow. It is your duty and responsibility as a veteran to seize every opportune moment you possibly can by injecting as much value into that moment as you possibly can. There you go.
Sounds like you've got a little bit of passion around that
Oh,
there, Mike.
I'm telling you.
No, I totally,
telling you.
I absolutely, totally, 100% agree with you. To just roam through this world half-assed with this, poor pitiful me, droopy face on. I'm sorry, man. I got no sympathy for people that just aren't willing to, get up off your ass. I mean, you raise your right hand. You've gone through basic or boot camp. You've selected a military occupational specialty. You've gone through some of the toughest training. If you're a combat veteran, you've gone through some of the toughest environments known to man. Like, and now here you are. Like, continue the mission. There's no reason why to drop pack and just sit on your ass and just do nothing anymore afterwards.
Right. Well, and the intimidation factor is based upon you've got to learn not a new skill set per se, but you're translating what the hell half these people are saying.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I got out of the Corps, I didn't know what contribution margin was. That's totally fine. You can figure that out at the community college level. You don't need to go straight into a 4-year degree path. Hop into community college, try to get your bearings, go to the VA, get your crap put together, keep going to summer school during the 2-year community college package, choose a 4-year degree path that might suit you. If it doesn't,
Yep.
like a lot of the other entrepreneurs that I talk with, they're like, oh, dude, I'm getting a 4-year degree in oceanography. I'm like, dude, are you out of your mind? Come on, man. Or like STEM degrees or something like that. Let nerds figure that stuff out. I'm sorry. Let's just call a spade because I'm a freaking 81 and I play spades all day. Like, I mean, this is just a grunt down and dirty perspective on this stuff. I needed training. I needed
Mhm.
instruction.
Right.
Okay. And I have a very hard-nosed perspective on this. If you cannot do anything, you become a teacher. And I have plenty of teachers in my family who can give me shit for this later on. If you can do something, you become an instructor. And then you explain, demonstrate, they imitate, and everybody practically applies the skill that you just trained them. That's what I needed.
Right.
So I learned entrepreneurship in a 2-year program essentially, and then got entrepreneurship boot camp for veterans. Now I'm working in the bunker in order to get
Nice.
stuff done. So you can do this not just on a bootstrap. The other people in 4-year degree paths have to learn culture. I
Mhm.
don't need to learn Greek and Roman mythology. Yeah, it came in handy every once in a while in barroom trivia. Other than that, it's really not a big deal. So the point is, without sounding belligerent, much rather driven, skip the bullshit. You're cultured. You're a member of our culture. Just go get a 2-year degree, get down to the brass tacks on this stuff. And then if you want to pursue the 4-year degree path, do it. If you want to get a PhD, do it. But get yourself into the baby step program so that at least you're locked in within a community college. You get into the VA, you get some fellowship, you sign up for warriorhall.org link ups. We're pairing together as veterans in entrepreneurship. And that's it. We start doing grunt work. You're going to learn how to wear like 9 hats all at once. It's the same shit that we did in the military.
That's right.
It's being an entrepreneur is being a sergeant in the military or in the Marine
Right.
Corps. At least I swear to God, it's just like being a sergeant. See,
it is, and it's the same for the Army too. I can't speak for the the Navy or the the Air Force or the Coast Guard, but everything that you're saying, I definitely resonate with being in the Army for sure.
mhm.
So we're wrapping up here. There's one question I ask all my guests. It's the same question. I get a lot of different answers, but it's a way to gauge kind of that gauge all my guests with this one question, and this is it. It's a little complicated. Take your time, and we've got the power of edit here. So, are you ready?
I'm ready. Don't ask, don't tell got repealed.
So, as you know, this show is called Change Your POV. Give me a time when you thought something one way and then a circumstance or an event happened that really challenged your original thought and changed your perspective. What was it? And what did you learn from the experience?
Sure. You know what? I got this one in my back pocket, brother. I'm going to be honest with you. I was out at this place called the Clinic, and the clinic was, well, it was an old clinic. It used to be like a hospital cross between in Kajaki. And I was sitting in a lawn chair. You know those white plastic lawn chairs that everybody's got at parties? Afghans.
Oh, yeah.
Afghans have those also, by the way. So just in case Americans are like, what do they sit on? So so I'm sitting across from this guy who's sergeant major of the police force. And I don't want to say that I had a rough perspective on Afghans, but I had a very much so procedural face value perspective on Afghans. 85% of them are illiterate, cannot read or write. I went into this thinking that they were going to be way more lowbrow, let's just say, than they already were. I gained not just a new respect, but a brand new perspective through the eyes of Abdul Hadi. When I sat there and I chatted with him about his family, and my foot was lowest. He had crossed his foot over top of mine, and then mine over top of his, and his over top of mine. So we're sitting here crossed ankled, almost side by side, wearing each other's covers. And he told me about his family. It was only 6 miles north of there. And for the past 5 years, he could not communicate with them at all. Because he might let on to the Taliban that was his wife and children. They would go and slay them. And so I thought I knew what discipline was, and I thought I understood what it meant to fight for something greater than yourself. And then I sat there cross-legged, cross-ankled, swapped covers and hearts for half a second with Abdul Hadi while he told me about his family that he hadn't seen for 5 years and was only 6 miles down the road. Now, I'm proud to say that we pushed up past that mark, and I believe that Abdul Hadi linked up with his family, but still to this day, I have no idea.
Wow.
I mean, you want to talk about discipline and caring about the mission, love of life, love of family, love of country. Well, that's it right there.
And you're right, man. Some of these people sacrifice a hell of a lot more than we would ever. I mean, put yourself in his shoes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyone that served over there, at the end of the day, at some point, whether it's the 12-month mark, 15-month mark, 18-month mark, whatever it is, there's a mark, and you get to come home, and you get to leave all that behind, or at least physically. But these guys, they're there. And they don't get to go home and leave it all behind. They are home, and that is their home. And whatever situation is left for them after we leave or pull out or relinquish whatever, that's it. That's their life.
Yeah. Yeah, he it was very strange. We went and we sat with him and we ate and all sorts of stuff the night that we left. And then they all said a prayer and said that Allah would guard us on the way through. I mean, these are kind-hearted Muslims, but it's not that sort of thing It's their kind-hearted police officers. And that's like so backseat to what is going on, in the forefront of everybody's mind. Like, let me tell you right now, religion doesn't really matter when you're on a two-way gun range.
Right.
So, I mean, you can pray really, really hard, but unless you know proper trigger control, sight picture, sight alignment, all of those other good fun things, you're probably not going to get yourself out of it. So I'm one of these people who would like to rely upon myself to whatever extent, not just survive, but flourish. And these folks feel the same way. It was amazing to me seeing someone who did not necessarily have the same, I don't want to say virtues, but it put a human perspective to it, yes, of course, but it put a different understanding of like, oh man, if we had a situation in America, like a Red Dawn situation in America, what would you do? You know what I'm saying? Like, these guys are former military who had a Red Dawn situation that's going on. It's just like, that's how I frame it to civilians.
Right.
Like, dude, you don't get it. You would do this stuff also. You would create an insurgency. Don't lie to me and tell me that you wouldn't.
Right.
I think it'd kind of be a little fun, but I'm a little weird in that way. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Gotta hide my enthusiasm during the zombie apocalypse, which I won't be. I'm gonna be the guy smiling and waving. Anyway.
That's right. I mean, and put yourself in his shoes. If I was him, I wouldn't be 6 miles down the road with I would be at home being with my family and protecting my family. So these guys are really giving up a lot. They're sacrificing not just themselves, but the potential that, that the enemy will find out, where their family lives and literally go and execute the entire family. Because, oh, by the way, folks at home, yes, that happens too.
Yes. Yes, it does.
So thanks for coming on, Mike. So real quick, TEDx Raleigh, when are you giving the speech and when is it available for the rest of us to be able to listen or watch?
So the live presentation is going to be March 19th. They sold out of tickets in 7 minutes. So, those are long gone. But the video should be available by the end of April. And I will make sure to post that on our social media with cigarsandseastories.com. By then, hopefully, michaeljpenney.com will be back up. My little personal brand website. I'll be doing other speaking, 5-paragraph business plan, which we didn't really dive into, but check that out. Right now, the template's at cigarsandseastories.com/5-paragraph business plan.
I'm going to have you back on here probably after the TED Talks. I want to talk about kind of how it went. I'm going to put some show notes to the link in this episode as well as the next one when we have you back. But when I have you back, I want to kind of dive in a little bit more into the 5-paragraph business plan. And we could talk about, because at that time I'll have already given the training to the local university here for student veterans. I'm giving a class on converting military experience into civilian language, which is really kind of what the 5-paragraph business plan does also. At least that's where it's predicated off of. So really, I want to get into that with you. When I have you back, we can get into that topic specifically.
Cool.
But I just wanted to kind of set the stage, introduce you to the audience, and let everybody know kind of who you are, what you're up to, and where can people find you or link with you or contact you?
Yeah, all the social media. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Rally Point. If you want to find me, out on the web, by all means, link up with me in any way, shape, or form that's out there. If you'd like to link up professionally, LinkedIn, of course, is the best way to get in touch. It's IN/Michael J. Penney. So that's my LinkedIn address. Other than that,
nice.
Say hi on the street, I guess, if you recognize the big red beard.
Nice. Awesome, man. Hey, thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Oh, it's an honor and a privilege. Thanks for having this riffraff over.
Hey, no problem, man. So you can find all the show notes to this episode over at changeyourpov.com/episode 32. Never miss an episode. Hit subscribe on your podcast player of choice. We've got a lot more great content headed your way. And if you want to reach out to me directly, you can email me at eddie@changeyourpov.com. I would love to hear from you. Until next time.
Thanks for listening to Change Your POV podcast with Eddie Lazary. Check out more content by going to changeyourpov.com. And remember, your ability and willingness to change your point of view will open doors of opportunity.